answer them and speak with your offices. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans, and nice job weaving in the B. Terry Burns Health Center. I know many here reference that.
Thank you for being there.
Well, a lot of people in the audience, of course, know who Terry is. So, next we have the superintendent from the Harupa Unified School District.
Good morning, Chairman McCarty, members Ting, O'Donnell, Chavez, and Kim. Thank you very much for inviting me here, and also thank you very much for the LCFF. It's been, I have to say, as an old-timer, I've watched weighted student formula since the 1970s, when then Professor Kurz started proposing it. So thank you. I am a member of the Access Superintendency Council. We represent 16,000 educational leaders throughout the state. Harupa Unified School District is in the northwest corner of Riverside County. You've flown just to the north of it if you've ever landed in Ontario. We have a budget of about $210 million. We have 19,577 TK through 12th grade students. 7,292 are English language learners. I like the numbers more than the percentages, but that's 35.8%. 14,128 students are socioeconomically disadvantaged. And I might throw a little fact out that just, you won't read it anywhere else, but over the 13 years, if a student gets supplemental and concentration grants and they're in our district the whole time, we will receive about $52,000, maybe $60,000 additional funding for that student. The median income in Harupa Unified School District is $57,000 per household. Our neighboring community, Eastvale, has a median income of $115,000. So over the course of those 13 years, we won't even get the difference of that amount of money. I am not complaining, but only highlighting that poverty is insidious and very difficult to deal with. And kind of to your remarks, Mr. Chavez, until we really eradicate poverty, we're going to have a funding formula, I believe, that will address the needs that really deal with the implications of children growing up in poverty. 83%, 16,248 students are Hispanic. And we have an unduplicated count. That's the number everybody wants these days of 80.78%. I want to talk a little bit about the implementation in our district. First of all, the challenge. I'm going to talk about that because the greatest challenge is the work. Given a true responsibility to educate English language learners and close the achievement gap, the real challenge is the challenge just to do that. As I'm sure Assemblymember O'Donnell realizes, implementing Common Core standards, where we're dealing with rigor, depth of knowledge, analysis, requires skills that not all students bring to school, and it's a sea change for teachers. We're not teaching factoids anymore. We're teaching thinking, critical ability, also traits like perseverance, focus, and really working through a problem. When I went to school, you were great if you came up with the answer really fast. I know the answer 12 times 3, but now we're asking children to really cipher their answers and explain them. That is the real challenge. The second challenge has not been so much engaging people, but the real point of engaging people, and that's having parents involved with their children. We held over 100 meetings for our LCAP, and they were extremely productive. We learned a lot of things. We learned that even in schools where they were predominantly Hispanic parents felt that they were prejudiced against. So we instituted, as a result of that, customer service training for all of our staff, including some of the Hispanic staff who were rude. Essentially, if you're rude to somebody who may have a belief that they're being rude to because of their background, that's what they think. So we need to work on that. Major effort has gone into rolling out Common Core state standards. We've been doing that for 3 years, and I have to say, as somebody particularly interested in math education, we've been using balanced math. I think you will see a mathematical generation much different from the one that I grew up in, and hopefully much better. We've rolled out units of study in English language arts and math, absent state materials, which thank you we're adopting this year. We asked our teachers to develop it, and 100 of our 1,000 teachers developed units of study. Interestingly, they were kind of seen as outsiders by their fellow teachers because they took the task to hand and were quite rigorous, and it's very hard. I mean, clearly, teaching Common Core state standards is difficult. We appreciate that. So that is probably the second biggest challenge, is the amount of work the teachers have. To that end, we increased the instructional day last year and added 2 days of staff development. Our district has received a great deal of support from the Riverside County Office of Education. We've been through everything, date, program improvement, and they have been a partner throughout of solid staff development, balanced approach to educational reform. We worked with them heavily through the LCAP, and there were a lot of questions about LCAP reading and approvals. The county office has been very thorough about that. The other challenge, interestingly, is everybody wants everything they've wanted for the last several years. I mean, I went to meetings where we want everything from sheet music, which, by the way, we did provide because we recognized that our high school choral teachers did need more sheet music, to additional teachers, to art teachers, to PE teachers, and it would about triple our budget in order to do that. But it did point out something that I will return to if I remember in my closing remarks, that very much like the process that Sostoli went through at the University of California, Santa Barbara, in determining what makes a quality school, we had to talk about what makes a quality district and the services we wanted to offer. And it's a challenge to put those in perspective, but there are many new services we are yet unable to offer because, I mean, clearly we're not at that point with funding. I will tell you one thing that we did was we allocated $3.6 million to our individual schools, and we didn't just say, here's the money. I'm a former business manager. I've sat in too many meetings where additional money bought additional stuff. We didn't want stuff. We wanted quality. Every school meets with a panel of our ed services, business services. They do an LCAP addendum. They talk in detail about the services, even down to individual students, numbers of students in intervention, bilingual tutors, the textbooks they're using, what struggles they're doing with that. They have increased staff development, extended learning opportunities for students. They've bought materials related to Common Core. They've hired additional intervention teachers primarily at the primary level. They've hired additional bilingual tutors. Middle school counselors added to technology. We're using PBIS, restorative justice, which I cannot tell you, besides saving students, it saves paper. But it's just, we used to have a discipline book that was this thick. Now we expel maybe 1 or 2 kids a month, literally. It will put our learning center out of business. Knock on wood, it's what we want to do. We're creating successes, not failures, out of students, and hopefully changing, I'm sure you've all heard the expression, the school to prison pipeline. I hate it, but it's often true. At the district, we hired 16 instructional coaches who spend half their time in the classroom because we wanted coaches who were teaching the stuff they were coaching other teachers on. It has been successful, although I have to say we need to wait because they're still developing materials. We hired 1 technology coach. We hired a parent outreach coordinator that's brought services like health services, mental health services, parent days, parent training, the list goes on throughout the district. Just that one person has provided such greater resources to our parents in the district. We have dental clinics at 14 out of 16 of our elementary schools, medical clinics available to all students, and mental health that was not there 2 years ago. As I mentioned, we added 2 days of staff development. We've purchased new math materials. We added 15 minutes to the teacher day, recognizing that our teachers were already working those 15 minutes, but we thought it only fair to acknowledge their work and pay for it. We reduced TK through 3 class sizes, and we're working on increasing career technology for our students. We're adding 3 major pathways to our high schools, 1 in first responders, 1 in medical assistants, and 1 in engineering. And I will have to say, as assembly members, please look at the cost of career tech. It's very expensive. We want quality programs. We also, in addition to that, working with the local community college, put in a welding class at our continuation high school. Those are children, I call them children, even though they'll be adults, maybe when they graduate, who do not know, unfortunately, what they may do the day after they graduate. We hope they'll at least be welders. Then they can go to college and pay their taxes and earn $100,000 a year as welders, because You cannot send welding offshore. It has to happen on site, so lots of construction. So we're very passionate about welding. Process went very, amongst other things. I just think welding's great because I can't do it. Maybe there's a welder out there. As I mentioned, we had 100 stakeholder meetings ranging up to 50 parents. We met with teachers, we met with staff, we met with DLACs, ELACs, school site councils, you name it. We met with the Chamber of Commerce. I had a superintendent's night out. It was an empowering and very enlightening process. Just in general, one of the things parents asked for was technology, but also to learn technology. So to that end, we added computers in our front office and our libraries and added our media clerks hours specifically to train parents on computers. One of the issues we're finding, just as a side issue, is that just because you know one technology, you don't know them all. You all know that the test is being delivered on what requires pretty much a desktop computer. Most of our children, even the poor ones, are familiar with phones and tablets that are, you work with hand, not dragging and pulling a mouse and things. We had a survey available on site. We had anywhere from 2 or 3 or 10 to 50 or 60 parents at each of the meetings. They were held throughout the district. In terms of changes, we would like to see it, not that necessarily you can control this, but better integrated with the federal process. As we all know, NCLB is far outmoded, it's archaic, but we believe the LCFF process is excellent. When you speak of accountability, I hope you look at qualitative measures as well as quantitative. A test score does not measure everything. Sometimes it doesn't measure anything. I can take 2 children who score proficient on their APIs or whatever test you give them. One will fail when they go to college and one will succeed for a number of different reasons. So please look at qualitative things like resilience, what we're doing to really help the mental health of our children. Again, this is a great start. It is equity. It's certainly opened the door to providing greater services for our children. And we hope as the state economy grows, there'll be more resources and we can really provide even more for our children. Thank you very much. I'll take questions afterwards, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Now a perspective from a County Office of Education.
Thank you.
Kern County.
Kern County. I'm very proud to be of Kern County.
Welcome.
And we are very different from Los Angeles, you're right. I have always supported the LCFF, and I supported it because I really believe in equity. My background is a bilingual teacher, a migrant ed teacher. I've also...
What's your name for the record?
I'm sorry, Christine Lizzardi Frazier.
Okay.
I thought that the LCFF funding model got away from a very restrictive system that did not meet the needs of the local communities. I really do believe in local control. But with that, I had a great deal of confidence in my 47 school districts. I have 47 school districts. I go from a school district of 8 students to the largest high school district in the state of California with 37,000 school districts. I have elementary, high school, unified, charter schools. You can pick out a situation and I can find it in Kern County. That's a good thing because whatever you do as far as changes that you make, I have a district to see how it's going to affect them. But with the LCFF and the requirement of an LCAP, as a county superintendent, I felt like I had a great responsibility. I respect the LAO's comment, but the responsibility on county offices is huge, as it should be. We should be providing our school districts with support that they need, because you're absolutely right. Everyone's getting different messages. And so it was really important in Kern County that we provided comprehensive trainings to our 47 school districts, all of them, to make sure they understood the template, they understood what was required of them, that they understood the difference between concentration, supplemental, base. At the very beginning, they actually started their own templates before a template came out. And then we said, no, 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 you have to use the state template. I understand yours is better. So I really compliment the state board for making it a little bit easier, because that, I promised them that we would fight for that, and that did occur. 180,000 students. We have a population, unduplicated count of 130,000, 22% English language learners, 63% Hispanic, free and reduced meals, 70%, high poverty in Kern County. So what I did is we made sure that we had 4 comprehensive workshops the very first year. Now, part of the LCAP process is that it is finance, business, and curriculum instruction working together. That's what you asked for. You asked for the dollars to follow the programs, and the programs be funded with dollars. In order to do that, as a county office, I had to mimic that philosophy. So, took my finance staff, sat them down with my curriculum instruction staff, and said, "You guys have to work together, because you have to model for our districts what they need to be doing in each of their county offices, in each of their school districts." So the 4 days, they had my team of finance and curriculum people sitting right with them as we went through the training. And after the training, I took those members of my team, and I took 1 or 2 finance people and 1 or 2 curriculum instructors, and assigned them to every single one of those 47 school districts, because they got the big picture. But now they needed to sit down with their district and say, this is what we're going to do. This is what we look like. And my staff needed to work with them to make sure that what they put in those LCAPs was what you wanted in terms of being able to understand it, but it was what their communities wanted in terms of what their students needed. That started from year 1, and it was extremely effective. That required a very different staffing on my part. And I'm going to be honest with you. I pulled them off other stuff. When I sat here in front of you a year and a half, 2 years ago, I said, we can do it, we can do it. And by the way, we were able to do it. But we didn't do a whole lot of other stuff. And I'm okay, because this was more important. This is where we needed to spend our time. And it's been very rewarding for our school districts. What we then did in the review process, because now we had to come back and review their LCAPs. So we built teams to make sure that we were consistent. We had 2 members on each team read each of the LCAPs, and then 2 other members read the LCAPs. And then when there were discrepancies, the 2 teams got together to figure out, okay, why did we have discrepancies? Then all the teams got together to review the 47 LCAPs to make sure that we were consistent with the 47, that we weren't looking at one district in a different way than another. Now, again, process was really important. And let me tell you what we find out. All of 47 of them, when we got them in, needed some revisions. Every single one of them. They didn't come in perfect, which it's year 1. That's going to happen. 50% of them had issues like their metrics wasn't clearly defined. Their funding sources weren't clear enough. Now, I want to address something that I think is really important. I'm hoping that we don't get into the numbers too far, because I was in the numbers. I come from FCMAT, and I can tell you, the numbers can show that they are spending lots of money here, but they may not be doing a lot of good things with that. So I understand your need to track the dollars, and I understand that. But in their LCAPs, it was more important to me that they showed me that they increased services, that they were doing things over and above what they had been doing before. They were research-based. They were quality changes that they were doing. That was more important to me than looking on a spreadsheet and saying, yep, you spent the proportionality, which we looked at that. That's a requirement. But it was more important about what they were actually doing. Parent meetings. How were they identifying their parent meetings? Sometimes they would just tell me we had parent meetings. No. Sometimes they told me they had 4 parent meetings. No. When were your parent meetings? What times were your parent meetings? We really need to know that you had these parent meetings. And I will tell you, the first year, parent meetings were about explaining the LCAP, and that they needed to. Parents didn't know what this was. And by the way, I'm going to tell you, they didn't believe us. Cuts. Oh, here's money now. What do you guys want? They weren't sharing a lot because they'd been disappointed so much. Here's all the stuff we want. Well, good, but we can't do any of it. We can only do this. So they really weren't believing. But they were in the LCAP process. They did understand it. They did give some ideas. The school districts had to realize you can't just have a parent meeting. If nobody comes, you say you had a parent meeting. No, if nobody comes, you have to have another parent meeting at a different time, at a different school. I have one school district that they have 9 elementary schools. They had their parent meetings advertised at every single one of those schools, and parents could go to any one of those 9. That's different. Usually you go to your own kid's school. No, because if you couldn't go to your own parent's school, you could go to another one that fit your schedule. That was really different. I had another one that said, man, we tried everything, and the one that worked the best is our spring concerts, our student programs. We would have our LCAP meetings an hour and a half before those. We would have, I know, it's kind of like trickery, huh? Huge outcome, huge people coming, giving input. This second year, I would say, without a doubt, they've at least tripled the number of parents that are coming, because now they believe, because they saw some of the changes, particularly in staffing, they believed. They're getting a lot more parent involvement, a lot more parents coming to the table saying this is what we want. And by the way, they're not asking school districts, how much are you spending? They're not asking that question. They're saying, what are you doing? What is my child getting? That's what's important to them. Had about, had about 20% that had moderate issues on the rail cap. They had to rewrite their goals. I didn't understand their goals. I didn't understand where they were going. Their template was very redundant. They were putting the same thing in a lot of different places. And it's like, you only get credit once. Tell me once, now what else are you doing? I had about 30%, 15 districts, that they were not understanding district-wide. You can use your money district-wide, but you still have to concentrate on EL, children in poverty, and the one that everybody forgets is foster youth. You still have to show me how what you're doing is really important to those 3 groups. It can be important to everybody, but it has to be specifically an area that these 3 groups really need additional assistance. They started to get that. And so we had to send it back. They had to redo that. And then about 30% that had major. We had to sit down with them and say, okay. I mean, we were as delicate as we could. We didn't say we're going to start all over again. But in reality, that's what we did. We sat down and said, okay, you're looking at it from other ways you did other plans, or you might have taken a plan that you had and you kind of tried to adapt it. Let's start from the beginning. Let's start there. And there were some of the smaller school districts that just didn't have the staff, quite the opposite. They didn't really have the staff to be able to write everything down or think in terms of what they were doing. And they really did need us to sit down with them. They had the information, you're very right. They just didn't know where and how to put it down. Kinds of things we saw, I very much agreed. The number one thing, lower class size. During the Great Recession, boy, we were up to 32, 33, and some of our high school classes were up to 38. Number one on the parent list was lower class sizes, and they have been able to lower class sizes very, very quickly, and that's where they put the majority of their dollars. Number 2 was safety. Parents want their kids safe. Number 3 was technology. They want their kids to be in the 21st century. As far as staffing, a lot of counselors, intervention specialists. This was new. Family support specialists, not just intervention academically, but social intervention staff that they were adding. Summer school, Saturday school, after school programs. Those are the kinds of things that we saw. In terms of our own LCAP, I have a county office LCAP. I run a lot of programs, but alternative ed. And CDE is correct. The first year, they were bogged down with the whole picture, and so we got almost no assistant whatsoever until we submitted our LCAP, and then we got a little bit of technical assistance, and so that was not very well done. I will say that the second year, it's been much better. We've had a lot more intervention with them. They've been providing a lot more guidance. We've been asking questions, providing them with information that we felt they needed to be able to provide oversight to county office LCAPs as well. And I think that's it. I think that it's been very rewarding. It's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of work, and it's been a lot of work for county offices, but it's been a lot of work for school districts. But they've been reaping a lot of rewards, getting more parent involvement, being able to bring back they could bring back staff when it was categorical and restricted. They could bring it back, but they couldn't bring it back in the areas that they decided locally that they needed. And they're very different. My LCAPs are very different. One school district adds a different kind of program than another, but very supported by the community. I think that's of value because I feel like they have buy-in to their own plans. It's not my plan. It's their plan. That has been an issue of, and I think this is really important that I'm going to ask you. Sometimes, and you know, if you've built a house or you've done anything, when you have great plans, but something happens and you go, oh, the bathroom's not, that's not going to work. We have to give our districts the flexibility to fail, to say, man, we thought that was going to work, but they don't want that. The high school kids don't like it. They're not participating. Whatever it happens to be, we need to shift to something that we think is working. We have to allow them to do that before we judge them. And again, I do really support the outcomes. This whole thing is about making sure that all our students achieve, that we put processes and programs in place to get there, and that's what we want to look at. And I agree. It has to be, someone said it has to be a dartboard, not just a pin. It needs to be the whole child and what we're serving them in terms of their whole educational experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Questions for this panel? Mr. Ting?
One quick question. I know we're running long. I was curious for each of the districts, as you went through your LCAP process, was there any one thing that you all came out of that was something different that you wouldn't have done without that process? Was there kind of an aha for any of the districts?
I don't know if it was just one thing. I think a couple examples I gave, even restoring services, we required a different approach. So parents wanted counselors back, and we said, now we're tying finances to student outcomes. So what do we connect it to?
I think our biggest, kind of sadly, was how parents were treated at schools or how they felt they were treated. No, I think if you asked any school staff, are you treating your parents well, they'd say, yeah, we do everything for them. So we immediately implement, not immediately, but customer service training, and it was very interesting to see our staff go through that and the difference between saying you need to fill out this form or let me help you fill this form out.
I have one superintendent that said, you know, he had one parent training a year, and he thought that was more than adequate. And then the parent surveys came back. He thought, you know, because it wasn't really that well attended, parent surveys came back that they wanted increased parent involvement training. They wanted on technology, on the Common Core, you name it. So they went from 1 to 4 a year. And I think that was surprising. Then when you really involve parents, they really will tell you what they need.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chavez?
Superintendent Evans and Sean, thank you very much for your presentations. It's very good to hear all the improvements and details you're doing out there. I really care about this whole equity issue, and as I've said a number of times, if the only way we're going to get there is through a better educational system. So we have to invest in that. What I'm concerned about is, Prop 30 brought us up and we're able to invest in education. The economy is turning around, and the Prop 98, we're seeing better. But if something happens with the economy and it doesn't grow, what I don't want to go through is what we went through in the past decade, because I think we just hurt a lot of children. 32 kids in a classroom is crazy. So that's why I keep on harping back to the issue of what's improving. You gave me a lot of activities, and I appreciate it because it's early on. But you need to understand, guys like us up here who are going to be going out to the public saying, we need to continue to invest in education, and this is why. This is a metric. We're not no longer 48th, we're number 38th, or we have more children going in CTE for better jobs. You need to help us help you to fight for the resources. And so that's why I'm so harsh on the poor gentleman over here, because I need to make sure that I can go back in my districts and I can talk around the state on these metrics have changed. Your list of issues is very, very good. Dr. Frazier, you've been here a number of times. It's clearly...
You're getting tired of me?
No, I like you. The 47 school districts, I'm just amazed you still have hair on your head after all that. What, as you were listing all the programs, did WestEd help you at all in what you were doing? Any things they were doing, or WestEd?
WestEd helped us with the template and the training on the LCAP. They did not help us in terms of working with the school districts and their particular programs.
So that was the value then?
It was, absolutely. Oh, absolutely, because we needed someone to say yes or no on how to do it. In terms of the resources, I really want to emphasize that this has been a great program. LCFF has been great because it's given us flexibility. It has not given us additional dollars. Adequacy is still going to be a huge issue for us, because if you truly want to make sure that the lives of the kids that you've identified, and actually all kids, because they all come with some kind of need, then we need to really talk about adequate funding for school districts. So you bring up a huge issue